Night crept silently over the valley. Even the wind seemed to have died down, leaving only a distant, low, forked growl, like the sound of breathing, but sad enough to tear the depth of the darkness. The sound competed with the dry branches gently crashing against the roof of the small wooden hut, but it was heavier, more tired. The woman was in her armchair, her hands clasped on the blanket, her eyes half closed, trying to rest. But the moment she heard that strange voice, her eyelids fluttered, her heart was stimulated by a sudden palpitation, the first for years that he walked to the door. He didn't take his cane. It was as if there was an instinctive haste. His hand, reaching for the door knob, stopped. Why did he feel this way? It wasn't a threat, but something else, something like a call. As he slowly opened the door, his eyes immediately recognized the shape blending into the night. Right in front of his eyes, at the edge of the porch, was a huge mass that had collapsed to the ground. At first he couldn't understand what it was. But then, as the moonlight hit the face of that furry mass, she gasped that a male lion, but not like that majestic, frightening king. This one was broken. Like a wounded mountain. He could hardly stand on his left foot, and the deep breaths coming out of his nose almost smelled of blood. His eyes were open but blurred. He didn't seem to be looking at her, but somewhere else. The sky. Or his past. She froze for a moment. This image, it confused her. She remembered such animals from books, documentaries, the nature center where she once worked. But a lion showing up in front of a person's house, and in this state, this couldn't be just a coincidence. It was a call for help. And when she realized this, her legs trembled, she ran inside. She rummaged through the drawers, not knowing what to do. An old first aid kit, dried plants, a thick piece of cloth her father had given her years ago. As she held them in her hands, she seemed to be transported to another time. Once, when her son was sick, she had clung to everything in the same panic. But that night, nothing could save him. Perhaps now this wounded lion was her chance to face her past. Maybe by saving a life, he could bring back to life everything that had died inside him. He slowly walked back to the porch. He had not only first aid supplies, but also a trembling courage. The lion did not move. It had noticed him, but it was not reacting. Was this a trap? Or, the silence of a creature that had given up? The woman bent down in fear, forced her knees and sat down next to the lion. She smelled a warm, iron scent. When she touched its injured foot with the cloth in her hand, the lion's body trembled slightly, but it did not attack. I will help you, okay? She whispered. It was as if those words were meant not only for the lion, but for herself. The lion gently moved his head closer to her hand. In that moment, their eyes met. In their pupils there was tiredness, experience, but also a bit of trust. In that moment, the woman understood. This wounded lion had not escaped. It had consciously chosen his home. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was the smells, maybe it felt the old spirit in the house. The woman began to dress it. The lion's leg was full of deep cuts, in some places you could almost see the bone. But still he didn't move. The woman was crying, but she didn't realize it. Each press of cotton will seem to erase a memory from her past. She couldn't cry for her son, but she was crying for this lion. Isn't it strange? Sometimes when one least expects it, one forms the deepest bonds. That he stayed up all night. He didn't sleep. At one point he came in and brought hot water. The lion moaned a little but did not attack. She brought a big blanket and put it over his head. Look, don't get cold. This will keep you warm. You are a living being too, you suffer too. And at that moment, the lion closed his eyes. The woman got scared. She checked her breathing. Her chest was rising and falling slowly. He was just resting. Even that much was a miracle. When the morning sun rose, she was sleepless but peaceful in her chair. For the first time in years, she felt that her heart had a purpose. At that moment, she didn't even hear a sound coming from inside the village. Because the wounded male lion lying in front of her was not just an animal, it was a symbol of something she had lost in her heart all those years ago, and the story was just beginning. Because when the lion's eyes opened again, he had something to tell not only her, but the whole world. And this story was not just a story of rescue, it was a story of two lonely souls finding each other. It was the beginning of that unforgettable night when man and nature, heart and heart, silence and scream, came together. The day had been burning since the early hours of the morning. The sun was still behind the hill, but the heat was rising through the dry earth and hitting the walls of the house. The woman sat in a small wooden chair on the porch, staring at the wounded lion, still breathing weakly. The night before, the lion had lifted its head for the first time and rubbed its head against her hand. It was the heaviest but most meaningful touch the old woman had ever felt. But now things had changed. The woman had woken up to the day, but her heart was still stuck in the night. The lion's wound was just above her leg and still leaking. In the early hours of the morning she had heated water, prepared the antiseptic mixture, removed the old dressing and wrapped a new cloth around it. But there was one detail she couldn't miss: the infection was spreading rapidly. This big animal, which could hardly step on one leg because of its wound, might not survive if it was not treated within a few days. The woman looked around helplessly. Her cell phone was dead. The radio frequency was not working. In this village house where she had lived alone for so long, her connection with the outside world was almost cut off. To call for help, she would either have to walk a few kilometers to the old radio station at the edge of town or hope for a miracle that a car would miraculously pass nearby. But she couldn't leave him. Deep inside, he knew that leaving the lion was the same as leaving him to die. That moment, the lion's eyelids opened slightly. The woman turned her head towards him. The lion's gaze was fixed fixedly on the sky. His eyes were old, but still proud. There was something inside him. She could feel it. Not just pain, the past. The memories. Maybe the herd he once led, maybe the first gazelle he hunted as a young man, maybe the last battle he fought before he was expelled. The woman saw the deep loneliness that permeated the animal. And she realized that it matched her own loneliness. She once lived in a crowded house. Her husband, her children, her neighbors. Now there was only herself. Just like him. Old, abandoned, forgotten. In these thoughts, the woman entered. From a small cloth bag she took out garlic, thyme and eucalyptus leaves. She crumbled them into a paste. She had learned this mixture years ago when she worked at a nature conservation center. Rubbed into the wounds of animals, this natural remedy could work wonders in the fight against infection. When she came out, the lion turned his eyes to her. She hesitated for a moment. The mixture in her hand was strong, it could be painful to apply. But she had no choice. This is going to burn a little, my friend, she said in a whisper. The lion's eyes narrowed. The woman knelt down and carefully applied the mixture to the wound. The lion suddenly tensed. All his muscles contracted. The woman was frightened too. But she didn't back down. She kept her hand steady on his leg. Her heart was pounding in her chest. But the lion relaxed again in a few seconds. He took a deep breath through his nose. His hands trembled as she finished. But something inside him had changed. It was as if they had endured the pain together. They were no longer just savior and patient. There was a bond between them now. As the day progressed, she observed him constantly. She put fresh water in his water bowl. She gathered tender herbs from the small garden behind the house. There was no meat. But she knew a hungry lion could not live without meat. So she took a risk. He went to the small hut next to the house, and found the cans that had been left for the hunters years ago. He heated the meat, cut it into tiny pieces and put it next to the lion. At first he didn't react. But then, he put his nose close to the edge of the container. He ate a few pieces. The woman could not hold back her tears. Even this was hope that in the afternoon, she was sitting on the porch watching him sleep when she heard the sound of an engine in the distance. She immediately stood up. Looking towards the horizon, she saw a cloud of dust rising. A vehicle was approaching. Her heart raced. Was someone coming? Could it be help? But at the same moment another fear gripped him. What if these unannounced visitors saw the lion as a danger? What if they were carrying weapons? What if they wanted to take him? In a moment of panic, the woman grabbed the blanket from the porch and spread it over the lion. Then she ran inside and turned on her old radio. There was nothing but static. The car was approaching. The woman went to the door, put her hand in front of her eyes to shield them from the sun and looked carefully. The vehicle was not familiar. There was no nature conservation logo on it. Two men got out of it. They were foreigners. They had rifles on their backs. The woman's heart squeezed tighter. She ran back to the lion's head. By then the lion had opened its eyes. He saw the people. He tried to get up quickly, but he was weak. His knees trembled. The woman turned around, locked eyes with the lion. Please calm down. I won't let them hurt you. The men approached. They were surprised to see her. One of them spoke. Aunt, this is a dangerous area. Who is this animal? The woman did not answer. She just squinted her eyes, trying to cover the lion standing in front of her. The other man raised his rifle. Look, it's still alive. Maybe there's a reward for that. He'll have an effective skin. The woman raised her hands. No. He doesn't belong to me. But he came here. I saved him. The men looked at each other. They laughed. But when the woman took a step, he changed his tone. If you harm this animal, you will have to deal with me first. The lion looked back at them. He didn't roar. But his posture, despite his weakness, it was such that the men took a few steps back. This predator, standing behind the woman, straightened up like a warrior. The men turned back. Whatever. Go to hell, they said. And they got into the car they came in and drove away. The woman sat down next to the lion. Tears were streaming down her face, but there was a smile on her lips. This was no victory. But it was a test passed together. They were no longer alone. And the end of this story was still unwritten. She had not slept a single waking moment that night. It was no longer only the lion's wound that burned inside her. She could not get out of her mind the looks of the strange men who got out of that vehicle, the rifles in their hands and their intentions that remained in the air after they left. The lion slept on the veranda, but it was not peaceful sleep, but exhaustion. His eyelids were fluttering, his breathing was still irregular. As the woman kept watch over him, she realized that for the first time she was thinking more about someone else than her own safety. This husband had gone so far as to risk his life for the injured animal. But why? Where had this connection come from? Why was she so deeply affected? Her eyes involuntarily drifted to an old photograph in the frame. It was of her son, who had died young. His eyes, like the eyes of a lion, deep, tired but trusting. Maybe that's why her heart reacted so sensitively to his every groan. She could not bear to lose another life that eye in the morning. Just as the sun was rising, she was startled by a sound. Another engine sound from far away, but this time it was different. Not loud, but regular. The woman rushed to the window. She squinted when she saw the vehicle on the horizon. This time it was different. It was written in big letters on the vehicle, Wang Protection Team. The woman took a deep breath, but the pressure in her heart did not go away. Because help was sometimes late, sometimes with unintended consequences, when the car pulled up in front of the house, she opened the door and got out. She had a shawl in her hand, shivering in the chill of the morning, but what was going on inside was much colder. The lion woke up to the sound and lifted his head. He was weak but alert. His eyes were on her again. She bent down and put her hand on his head. Don't be afraid, she said gently. I promised you, whatever happens, I'm behind you." The car door opened. 4 people got out. They were wearing bodyguard uniforms, carrying bags and a stretcher. They approached the woman. One of them nodded. "Are you Mrs. Farida?" The woman nodded. "Yes. I couldn't call, but I was hoping for help." The men approached. When they saw the lion, they backed away slightly but examined it carefully. One of them squinted. "This. I seem to recognize this animal," he said. The other wrote something on the digital device in his hand. "This is a male lion. Yes, we have information on him. He doesn't have a name, but he has a nickname." "What is it?" "King Cleftpaw. He was the leader of the region for many years. Brave, strategic. But about 3 months ago he disappeared. Young men knocked him down. He was badly injured. We thought he was dead." The woman's throat tightened. The animal in front of her was no longer just a wounded man, but a legend. And that legend had knocked on her door when he came to help. The men tried to approach. They brought stretchers, they prepared drugs. But the woman suddenly stepped forward. "Wait. Please, this animal trusts me. If you scare it, we don't know what will happen." The men stopped. They saw the determination in her eyes. One of them leaned in. "Did you lure him here?" "No. He found me. He came in the middle of the night, collapsed on my doorstep. So I wanted to help. Maybe this was my chance to make things right." The men exchanged glances. The most senior one nodded. "Okay. We'll carry him with your help. If you don't mind, you stay with him. She seems to be more comfortable with you." The woman nodded. The drug was administered, but the dose was low. The lion did not react, he just blinked his eyes. When the woman put her hand on his head, his body relaxed a little. The stretcher was carefully placed, several people lifted it together. The woman got into the vehicle with the lion. She was filled with pride and fear. She did not know if this was a liberation or the beginning of a farewell. She did not speak the whole way. The lion was lethargic but aware. Several times his eyes fell on her hand. She stroked his head. "We only spent 1 night with you, but it feels like the weight of years." When they arrived at the Wang Conservation Center, the team placed the lion in a special cage. His wounds were treated immediately. While the vets worked, the woman watched from a distance. A strong feeling inside her drove her to watch. As if a relative was in surgery. Yes, like a family member. After a while an attendant came to her. "Ms. Farida, we started treatment immediately, but we have good news. The animal may survive. It will be difficult, but possible." The woman couldn't hold back her tears. She put her hands to her face. "I just wanted to live, nothing else." At that moment there was a commotion in the back. An officer came running. "Director." A group of men came with papers. "They say this lion is in the dangerous category and must be handed over for skinning." The woman's blood ran cold. "What?" the official repeated. "A hunting company, they came with illegal documents. They claim that the animal poses a threat to the public and that the hunt is approved." The woman jumped up. "You can't allow this. This lion was about to die. I saved him. He's no longer a threat. He's my friend." The argument escalated. As the woman shouted with tears in her eyes, some of the staff inside glanced at the caged lion. At that moment the lion raised its head. Painfully but proudly. Eyes, ears pricked up. And a deep, muffled but clear roar rose. Everyone in the building fell silent. The woman turned. "Did you hear that? That voice, it's not a threat. He says he's still alive. And I won't let him be destroyed while I'm alive." At that moment an officer came on the phone. "The executive director wants to speak to the director of the center." The woman immediately picked up the phone. And for the first time in her life, she spoke in a tired voice, but standing up straight. "This lion came here on its own. It didn't bite anyone. He suffered at my door. I helped him. Now if his life depends on your signature, know that my life is as valuable as his. At that moment, the silence on the other end penetrated everyone's lungs. Finally the voice on the phone softened. We'll move him to the special zone. We'll take care of the rest of the paperwork. As long as he's not a danger, the lion will remain in the free habitat. The woman fell to her knees. She put her hands to her chest. It had been a battle. But it had been won. At least for now. Days later, the woman went to see the lion again. She saw him in a special, large natural enclosure. His leg was beginning to heal. His fur was combed and his eyes were clearer. She approached. The lion saw her. And, slowly he bowed his head. As if in homage to a queen, the woman reached through the cage wire in tears. You're safe now. But know that I am always here. The lion didn't answer. But he took a step closer. He fixed his eyes on her eyes. And in that look, there was something that cannot be put into words. Gratitude. Devotion. And a kind of farewell, because some friendships are not made with words. And some stories, even if they don't last forever, they live a lifetime in the heart. The sky had turned gray that morning. As the woman, thermos in hand, made her way to the iron fence of the center where the lion was being held, she noticed that the ground beneath her feet was damp. It was raining, but lightly. The earth released that familiar scent, the smell of experience, the quiet sound of belated goodbyes and new hopes. The lion, King Cleftpaw, stood on the other side of the fence, silent as always, but standing tall. When the woman approached, the lion turned his head. Even the wire between them no longer made sense. It was as if there was an invisible bond between them, neither a chain nor a cage could break it. The woman took out a piece of meat from her pocket. She had prepared it specially. It was as if she had put a little love and a little regret into it. The lion approached, but walked more slowly than usual. The woman noticed it at once. Something was strange. His eyes were still bright, but his gait, lumbering and unsteady. She panicked. What happened to you? Are you sick? Her eyes darted anxiously behind the wire. At that moment an officer approached her. His voice was soft, but what was hiding inside was chilling. We checked on him this morning. His body is reacting to the infection. The wounds are healing, but his internal organs, combined with old age, may have developed complications. The woman stopped talking. She put her hands on the wire. Aslan looked at her. There was no fear in his eyes. But a surrender, maybe a farewell. No. Not yet. I'm not ready. Neither are you, but the calendar of life was not drawn by humans. Sometimes the things we see as the strongest are the most fragile. The woman stayed at the center all day long. She waited at the head. The rain picked up. The sky seemed to cry. Towards night the guard came again. He had a file in his hand. He sat next to the woman. And said in a whisper, her condition is deteriorating. We have been advised to transfer her to another facility. But she may not be able to make the trip. If you want to do something, now is the time. The woman could not hold back her tears. She went down to the lion. She crouched on the edge of the wire. She put her hands inside. The lion came closer, put his head in her hands. And at that moment, the air went silent. Everything went silent. I just want you to know this, she said. When you came to me, I was in pieces too. I was lost. But with you, I remembered what it means to protect someone, to love someone, to share their pain. You weren't just a lion. You were the heart I had left. The lion closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. His chest rose, then fell, and never rose again. The woman remained silent. She neither shouted nor screamed. She just bowed her head to the ground. The tears from her eyes mingled with the earth. At that moment the earth and the lion's spirit merged. And something happened in that farewell, like a whisper, as if the lion was still there, only the body was gone. The next morning, the center organized a small ceremony for the lion. The woman carved it on a stone with her own hands. Here lies a king and protector of hearts. Wild but gentle, strong but loyal. The news spread quickly. Local newspapers wrote, "Old woman saved wounded lion, but he closed his eyes forever in her hands." People read the story, cried, were moved. But no words could describe what the woman had been through. Months passed. The woman still lived in the same house. But there was now a wooden sign in front of that porch, "Here sleeps the king's shadow." And every morning she put a piece of meat next to that sign. Maybe the birds ate it, maybe the ants. But for him it was still alive. He couldn't see it, but he seemed to hear a roar in every wind. A breath in every rain. Now I ask you, dear listeners. What would you do if you found a wounded lion on your doorstep? What if you were torn between calling for help and risking your life? Which side would you choose? Do you think it is possible to be friends with a living creature without being able to talk to it? Thank you very much for listening to this touching and true story. Please write your thoughts below. Who do you think was the real savior in this story? Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any more moving stories. And please pour your heart into the comments, because every comment is as precious as a new friendship. See you in the next story.